And so we did work with, at the time, Chair McCarthy to send a letter to the president of NAU inviting them to participate. They are still contemplating that. They are waiting upon their own hiring of a capital projects manager, who they would like to fill that seat. So that one is still in the works. And then ADOT actually had their North Central District administrator sitting on the TAC while the bylaws said they should be sitting on the management committee. We've cleaned that up. Brendan Foley now serves on management committee, and we've appointed a new member to the TAC for ADOT. The next goal was to update financial policies and procedures. This had come out of our audit at the time when we set these goals. Since then, we've had 2 more audits, and we've addressed all the comments in all 3 audits at this point. So not only did we do the financial policies and procedures that we knew we needed to update at that time, we also did our subrecipient risk assessment and policy and our financial policy in addition to those. The next one was to consider new partnerships with NAU to assist with transportation planning. So 1, have them help us, and then 2, help use MetroPlan to let them get practical skills. So kind of both sides benefiting to this relationship. So for NAU, we've developed the subrecipient relationship where now we can more easily pass money through to them to complete work and get students hands-on practical applications within the MetroPlan region for projects. We and Dave and Ty just submitted a DOT research white paper application for about $200,000 that would benefit NAU and continue research that they're doing there. And we've increased our partnership by increasing the number of interns that we have. What does MetroPlan get out of this? We got grant assistance. NAU's Economic Policy Institute helped us with the benefit cost analysis for the Protect application. The interns have really upped our social media presence in a way that I think the rest of the staff don't have the knowledge or capacity to do. Ty in particular has been amazing at making us maps. You will see them later today throughout presentations, and conducting a bunch of background research on particularly the West Route 66 project. So really a mutually beneficial relationship with NAU. The next item is to lead and mentor staff in the development of or in delivering the strategic plan goals and developing staff so that we have resiliency in the organization. Since we are such a small team, it is important that we have people who know how to do multiple functions of the organization. So I've brought into the organization a leadership framework that I use. It's pretty prescribed, and so we're all using the same language to talk about leadership skills. Our skills are up on the screen in front of you. We do have monthly leadership meetings. We've instituted reviews and regular feedback at the organization. I've been supporting training opportunities, training workshops. We did the grants workshop here in town to support partner needs as well. And I think this is successful, which in the resulting KPIs, key performance indicators, which are trending upward, and that will be later in today's PowerPoint as well, a different agenda item. The next one is to establish a process for monitoring and reporting on those newly adopted KPIs. So we did develop the new strategic plan, and then we developed ways we were going to measure our performance in implementing that strategic plan. We created visual representations to make it easier for people to track and understand how those KPIs are changing. And now I continue to lead. They're each assigned a section, not to be responsible for the results, but to be responsible for the data and reporting. And so I'm leading staff in that tracking and mindfulness of our KPIs as we look at what we want to achieve as an organization. So those were the goals set forth by the board and status updates on all of those. Some self-reflections, just things that I'm really proud of over the past year is really growing the MetroPlan team. I think we were 4 when I started and now 7 and 8 with our Climate Corps fellow. Our grant seeking program, we've been really successful this year. We're seeing those numbers trend up. MetroPlan's taken a stronger role than ever in the writing and submission of applications, whereas previously we were very much a support function for partner agencies in doing that. I'm excited about the fun community-oriented things we're doing and hope to do more of the Bike Month, the Cheshire Asphalt Art Project, hope to do more demonstrations and pilots that are really community events. And related to that, the increase in the public awareness of MetroPlan, I think we have a long ways to go on this. I think if maybe 1 out of 10 people on Flagstaff knows what MetroPlan is, but I think that's ahead of where we were, and hope to continue to grow that. While not the most fun things to put in my 3-bullet briefings, so they often don't make it, I'm also proud of our work on our standard operating procedures and policies that we've updated. I think that's really important to the functioning of an organization. And then finally, I'm also proud of coming in right after the business manager had left, the outgoing executive director, and coming in and picking up the financials of the organization and resolving our cash flow challenges. I have room to grow. I will say that. So I think some areas where I could continue to grow are continuing to train and develop the staff for resiliency and function. It is a challenge for us because we're trying to get a lot done, and so it's hard to replicate efforts or duplicate efforts, but I hope to put more energy there over the next year. I also hope to continue to build relationships with the city through the successful implementation of plans. As you'll hear Cody present later, there was some feedback to continue to develop those relationships with the city, and that is something I would like to do. I'd like to find more ways to support staff growth and satisfaction. They've been really key to the success over the past year, and there are limited opportunities in the structure of MetroPlan for promotion. And so how do I keep staff engaged and happy and satisfied so that they stick around? And then finally, I feel like I've been very focused on the day-to-day tasks of MetroPlan over the past year, and I probably haven't done as much outreach and support for management committee and the board as I would like to do and be as engaged with all of you as I would like to be. So I hope to shift to more of that over the next year as well. So those are my self-reflections, and I'm going to invite Cody up to give her presentation on my 360.
Good afternoon, members of the board. As Kate has said, many of you know me. My name is Cody Weaver. I am the Human Resource Manager for Mountain Line. As a Mountain Line employee, we also allow MetroPlan access to our services. So I was more than honored and ecstatic to do this for Kate and present you guys a result today. I'd like to thank Director Morley, the staff of MetroPlan, the Board of Management Committee for all your participation. Thank you to you. I'm able to pull all of these results as well. The survey was created by myself, Cody Weaver, from HR. Questions were created by Kate Morley and myself. Questions were pre-approved by Chair, President, and Vice Chair. Survey questions were ranked 1 through 5, 1 being the lowest and 5 being the highest, and open-ended questions. The survey was administered to MetroPlan, TAC, and Management Committee on April 24th, 2024. Surveys were completed through a link sent out via email. The survey was closed on May 17th, 2024. For morale, does this interval make efforts to increase or decrease team morale? Kate had a 5 out of 5. Performance and development, as many of you see, 4.7 out of 5, supports and encourage employee growth and opportunities for promotion, 4.5 out of 5. Strategic results, she had a 5 out of 5, and problem solving, 5 out of 5. From the management committee and TAC results, we had create positive professional image and develops cooperative associations with community groups, boards, and commissions, customers, vendors, and the general public. 5 out of 5. Provides well-researched and thought-out recommendations that provide a true options, and B, are sensitive to diverse opinions of the community, and C, are goal-oriented. She had a 4.8 out of 5. Develops and maintains effective working relationships with elected officials, NAPTA board, tax, staff, transportation agencies, media, and the general public. 5 out of 5. Effective coordinates with local, regional, state, and federal agencies. 4.8 out of 6. I'm sorry, 4.8 out of 5, not 6. These were some of the open-ended responses from Kate's survey that I wanted to present to you today. Kate does an admirable job of communicating regularly and effectively within the organization and with influence partners outside of it. Her positivity and can-do attitude keeps the organization moving forward and successful recruits support of our efforts. We have increased fund seeking by 235% since 2020 and have increased grants awarded by 65%. This has everything to do with Kate's strategic mind, experience in planning and grant writing and cultivating the talents within our team. Kate has done an excellent job communicating and collaborating with city staff and advocating for a comprehensive plan development that takes into consideration both the needs of the city and the region. Kate moves at a very quick pace, and sometimes she seems further ahead than our capacity to keep pace with her. However, she's aware of this and tempers her lightning pace with grace. Kate is a great leader. She encourages employees through her words and actions. Kate is very involved with all planning activity at MetroPlan, yet allows staff to play a significant role in making results happen. She is active in supporting employees and their accomplishments. Are there any questions in regards to the survey results and or open-ended questions?
I just have one question.
Yes, sir.
Kate, what have you done for us lately? All kidding aside, you've done a really good job. And you know what? Everyone on your team's done a great job. So anyway, as you pointed out, the team is behind you, and we appreciate that.
Yeah, more, no question, just a comment that the performance evaluation reflects what we already knew, and that she's put together a great team and have been very effective in working with that team to get results, and has created a culture of success with her team. And so it's just nice to see it put to numbers. The fact that her lowest evaluation was a 4.5, 4.86, that's pretty good, you know. And so is there room to grow? There's always room to grow, right? Continuous improvement. And I appreciate you, Kate, putting out those areas that you see as areas for growth. And I look forward to seeing you grow into those areas. So thank you. Are there any other questions or comments? Vice Chair Sweet.
Thank you. You are doing a great job. And what I love is how MetroPlan really has grown in the community. My friends ask me about MetroPlan, whereas a year ago, they didn't know who we were. So I think that that's great. Keep going with that. I talked with staff a little bit, a couple of staff members that work with you that weren't able to fill out the survey. And I think they touched, or it was touched on, except for one point that they made. They too think you're doing a wonderful job. And I wrote it down, hold on. They would like more teeth in the plans and to make sure that they're implementable. And I think you did touch on that, but that was the one kind of thread throughout the conversation. Other than that, I think you're doing an amazing job. Staff that I talked with, you know, has watched the organization grow, and I just can't wait to see what we do next.
If I may, I'd like to note as well, as you can see from the survey results, Kate has done a phenomenal job. And from a human resource perspective and working next to her on a day-to-day basis, I have nothing but amazing things to say and learn and grow with her. And to see her and MetroPlan staff work an amazing job every day that I come into the office.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Member Aslan.
Yeah, Kate, we're in very good hands with you at the helm. Thank you. You make us look good. You do all the work. I just want to acknowledge that, you and your team. And we help make some decisions and provide a compass bearing for what you're doing. But all the heavy lifting and all of the expertise and technical skill set comes from you guys. And we're in great hands. We're lucky to have you. I hope you're planning on sticking around.
Thank you all for those kind words. As Cody was saying, like 4.86, I was like picturing like ice skating signs or something. Like, what's the next judge say? Okay, well, thank you all. I appreciate that. I do love serving MetroPlan, and I do want to stick around. The new goals would be the next part of this topic. The goals are in your packet. I'm not going to run through them all here, but here's the summary of what I've done. They're still based around the same strategic plan. We decided not to change it because it's still in progress. A year wasn't enough to do all those things. But I've removed the items that were complete. So we finished the mission vision, we updated the financial policies, we've got that, we're working through that partnership with NAU and developed, that should be ADOT, and we developed the KPIs. I modified 4 of them to really reframe them as continue to implement or, advance further the TDM program, the strategic grants process, NAU's role on the board, since that one's not complete, and develop technical knowledge amongst staff. So just modifications of what was in there to recognize it's ongoing at this point. And then I did put 2 new goals in there. One is to build relationships with the city through the delivery of planning efforts, and one is to consider opportunities for staff growth and mentorship. So those are what I added for new goals. It is an action item for the board to approve my new goals. And so if there are other modifications or goals you would like to add, we can easily do that as well.
All right, thank you. Are there any questions or comments? Yes, Member McCarthy.
Thank you, Chair. When I met with city staff, one thing they mentioned was that we need to make it very clear, like whose responsibility is to do what. What MetroPlan does, what the city does, what the county does, et cetera. I think you're aware of that, but I'll just pass that on as a comment that was made.
Thank you, I appreciate that. Are there any other comments? I'd just like to say I appreciate your 2 new goals. I think they're appropriate based on the feedback from your evaluation. And so do we need a motion now to approve them? Yes?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay, in that case, can I get a motion to approve the 2 new goals that have been indicated, building relationships with the city through the delivery of planning efforts, and consider opportunities to provide for staff growth and mentorship in constrained hierarchy for advancement? Did I read that right?
Chair, if I may, I've revised the goals in your packet, and so you could just, because I've made other changes as well, the deletions and the modifications, so you could choose to approve them as drafted in the packet.
Okay, can I get a motion to approve them as they are in the packet? Because apparently I read the wrong one.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, we have a motion by Member McCarthy. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
We have a second by Vice Chair Brigade, excuse me, Sweet. I thought I was on the Board of Supervisors there for a second. All right, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All right, thank you. Motion passes. So you have 2 new goals, stretch goals for next year. Look
Thank-
forward to seeing how you implement them.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so are we done with item 1 and ready to go on into item 2? Okay, next item is discussion and possible action regarding executive director contract amendment. And with that, I'll pass it over to Mr. Kavanaugh.
Thank you very much, Chair Vasquez, and thank you to the board. My name is Brandon Kavanaugh. I'm from Mangum Wall, Stoops and Worden, your legal counsel. We have in front of you today a 1-page First Amendment to the MetroPlan Executive Director's contract. There's really a simple reason as to why we're offering an amendment. Your contract as it exists doesn't expire. So you don't need to do a new contract for your executive director. And it does say that you can change her compensation by motion without having to do an amendment to the contract. But because there was also the question of delaying the review to today from the date that is in the contract that was earlier, I wrote up the amendment just so that it would encapsulate that delay, that everybody agrees to it. And then since I was already doing that, I put in the proposed increase that was requested and reviewed by the Mountain Line HR department. And so those are the 2 items that you see that are written into the amendment in front of you. So happy to answer any questions if you have any, or if you do not, I will simply step out of the way.
Do we have any questions about the contract amendment? It looks like we have none. So do we just go ahead and move forward with the amendment, or? Okay, in that case, do we have a motion to approve the contract amendment to our executive director's contract agreement?
I move to approve the contract.
All right, we have a motion by Vice Chair Sweet. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second by Member McCarthy. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
All right, congratulations, contract approved.
Thank you.
Thank you, appreciate all the help. All right, so next item is number 3, consider adoption of the FY 2025 budget. So, Ms. Morley.
Thank you, Chair, members of the board. We presented a draft of the budget to you last month. It is the same. It hasn't changed. We received no comments on it, but I will run through it for you again today. Revenue, anticipated revenue is on the screen in front of you with about 1.4 million in new federal funds, and then a carry forward of about 2.1 million to bring us to about 3.6 million in federal funds. We have match required for all of that. And so the vast majority of that this year is actually in, I guess not the vast majority, but the majority is in cash. And part of that is that some of these awards that we've received are actually subrecipients to our partners. And so they are matching with cash. So the Mountain Line cash is funding for plans or for grants that they have received or that we are subrecipient, making them a subrecipient of, and the city cash match is the same. We typically use in-kind, and so that's where the rest of our match will come from. It is about a 5% drop in anticipated revenue, and part of that is we had a fund swap with Mountain Line that has now, we've used up all those funds and finished the fund swap or close to finishing the fund swap. So that reduces some cash to the organization, as well as we've been expending the downtown mile funds. So bringing some of that down as well. On the expenditure side, we have 4 categories of our budget. The first one is salaries and employee-related expenses. This is proposed to go up 13%. That includes 2 items, a 3% annual increase pay adjustment for staff, as well as the Safe Routes to School coordinator position. We were hoping to hire that position in FY 24. It is open now. We hope to have someone on at the start of FY 25, but in FY 24, we only anticipated that person would come on about halfway through the year. And so the 13% is the other 6 months of that position as well. Operations is the next part of our budget. It has a 40% increase, which is about $100,000. So 40%, we don't have, it's not a large pot of money, so $100,000 is the 40%. That is directly related to our move into the Downtown Connection Center, which is anticipated in a year from now. We may need desks, IT equipment, signage at that building. It is a one-time, it is not carried forward in our 5-year plan. We would anticipate that would go away after the move into the Downtown Connection Center. The 2 other changes there are that legal services and financial services have been over budget this year, and so we've increased costs to accommodate that change, as well as, and then we offset that by decreasing the amount of money in our public outreach line. So took about $30,000, $25,000 out of public outreach and moved it to those other services. The next category is travel and training. Again, an increase here in this item. The cost of travel has just gone up exponentially, and we have more staff than ever. And so if we want to do continuing ed and keep staff at the cutting edge of transportation practices, we really need to invest in this area. It's about $4,000 per staff member to increase the budget in this way. So that accommodates somebody maybe going to one out of state and one in-state travel event. It's not outlined that prescriptively in terms of each staff gets to do that. There are opportunities for board members to travel in that budget as well. The projects line is the largest line of our budget. This is really where we put all those one-time grants to do things that we want to get done in this community. That is mostly within that special projects consultant line, and that is largely the Transportation Alternatives Grant, which funds the Safe Route to School program. We also have a little bit of money for data collection and modeling. Those were always kind of buried within the budget, but are standard things that we do. And so pulled those out so that we can track those more specifically moving forward. So it's about a 24% increase in the overall expenditures of the organization. Here is the pie chart for those 4 expenditure categories. You can see the vast majority of the budget is salaries and projects, with a little bit for operating and travel in there. Here is the 5-year budget. At the last May meeting, the board asked that I include 24 so that you could see the difference in the funds, and then see our 5-year fund balance, which is at the bottom of your screen. So you can see while we have this increase in expenditures and a decrease in revenues at the end of the 5-year, so we're still at about $150,000, which is where we really traditionally have been as an organization over time in the fund balance. I will say the 5-year budget is fairly conservative. It does not anticipate that we're getting competitive awards. It anticipates that the carbon reduction program, which is about $150,000 a year, goes away at the end of the 5-year transportation bill and is not renewed. So there's some conservative estimates in the revenues throughout the 5-year budget as well. So really, the end result is that we're decreasing our federal surplus by spending more. However, that means we're doing a better job using the resources available to us to get programs and projects out into the community and still have a sustainable budget over the 5 years. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions, but we are looking for a motion for the FY 2025 budget.
All right, thank you. Do we have any questions about this budget? Okay, and also I just want to make a note before we move forward that Supervisor Begay, Chair Begay, is currently in a meeting with Navajo Nation and Hopi Nation state transportation folks. And so she's working on transportation issues on the county's behalf. And so just wanted to get that in the record that that's why she's not here today. With that said, are there any questions or comments about the FY25 budget or 5-year plan? Member McCarthy.
If there's no questions, I'll make a motion to approve the fiscal year 2025 budget as presented.
Thank you. We have a motion by Member McCarthy. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a second by Vice Chair Sweet. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. All right, motion passes. We have a budget for 2025.
Thank you.
All right, next up is consideration adoption of FY 2025-2029 Transportation Improvement Program. Staff member Wessel.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board. David Wessel, Planning Manager for MetroPlan. The Transportation Improvement Program is one of our mandated products. We have to adopt it at least every 4 years. We've elected to go on a 2-year cycle. This is a list of the capital expenditures and other federal funding sources that come into the region, and it is to align with the regional transportation plan. The program this year is reformatted a bit to hopefully align more with ADOT's expectations and make it easier for all of us to track. This table indicates the planning funds that come into the region, surface transportation planning block grants, planning funds, state planning research funds, and the CRP funds, the carbon reduction program funds that Kate just mentioned. The annual operations, again, kind of align with the budgets there. We bring in about $900,000 a year. We now have a singular table which shows the active grants that we have out there. And there's a bunch, as has already been alluded to, and you'll hear more about. We have the Downtown Mile, the Flood Protection Program, Safe Routes, Belmont DCR, that's a design concept report, the 4th and Cedar roundabout, Butler Bike Lanes, Safe Streets Master Plan, and more recently announced the La Plaza Vieja congressionally directed spending. So congratulations to the city on that. The tables that you're seeing today show those last two with the asterisks in the unfunded list. We will, in the motion today, ask you to permit staff to move those into the active list in the active year. Here's a map of those projects. We'll add the Plaza Vieja to that. And the Safe Streets Master Plan covers the entire region, so there'll probably be a footnote. Because transit is such an extensive program, it has its own table. Those things highlighted are a collection of projects that are all associated with the same project and the same ADOT project ID. The Downtown Connection Center, CDL course, and more recently, the Cast Bar Maintenance Facility. That parenthetical statement was actually last month that the CDL course open. We'll be hosting the State Transportation Board there later this month. Of interest here, perhaps, are these very large projects showing almost $90 million being obligated in 2024. We'll go back to something a little more normal at $7 million a year, of course, until NAPTA or Mountain Line again wins all the grants that they win. So kudos to them for the good work they do. This is the 5310 and 5311 programs. That's the elderly and disabled program and the rural transportation program. These funds have been awarded, and we will update this, what's called an administrative modification to reflect those awards. However, Mountain Line's funding for the taxi program and van pool programs, both, I believe, were greatly reduced in their award. These are ongoing projects. Our programs are very important to residents within the county and the region, and that's under appeal. So we're going to hopefully hear about that appeal results here shortly, and then we'll make that administrative modification. And again, the map of those projects, you can see the maintenance facility up in the top right, the connection center, and the CDL course there on NAU's campus. There is a table that goes with this map, but it's a very extensive table showing the city's 5-year construction or capital program. Some of the big projects being funded by Proposition 419 include 4th Street and John Wesley Powell Boulevard, John Wesley Powell Boulevard out to the airport, as well as the Lone Tree Railroad overpass. There's a number of others on there as well. The Beulah Boulevard extension being under construction right now. The West Route 66 improvement has yet to be determined, and that study is now ongoing. Here's the county projects. This map has been updated. There's the Stardust Trail Overlay program. US 89 Burris Lane signal. This is now just an intersection evaluation. The county's putting money towards the engineering of that, and a roundabout is being considered as one of the alternatives to be evaluated. And then the auxiliary lanes identified there will actually be at 2 intersections, Townsend Winona, and then further to the east, Coke Field. This is the ADOT 5-year construction program from their tentative program, which is, I believe, going to be adopted in June here. We do have a request in at one point in time using the carbon reduction program funds. We had seen improvements on US 180, pedestrian improvements on US 180 included. Those have since been pulled, presumably for other priorities. These were projects identified in that very long Milton US 180 study process. We were very excited to see them in, and we've requested that they be reinstated. Don't know where that's going to end up, but important projects nonetheless. if you look through these, you'll see this kind of I-40 theme in all these projects, not all of these projects, but a lot of these projects. 3 interchanges having their bridges rehabilitated or replaced, ITS, and we'll be talking about lighting here in a little while. Again, significant investment of about $80 million over the 5-year period. We continue to include the Lone Tree I-40 traffic interchange as we continue to see that as a long-term valuable addition to the system. But with inflation and other things, it continues to be financially out of reach, but we'll like to keep that placeholder in case a boatload of money falls from the sky and we can move on it. And here's those projects. You can see the many projects along I-40, drainage project out on 180, and then a couple projects out on I-17. Then this is the unfunded list. Again, the Safe Streets Master Plan and La Plaza Vieja have been awarded, and we'll move those up. The city has put in for the Flagstaff Amtrak platform improvements, congressionally directed spending. The county is putting in for a couple of projects, including the work on Townsend Winona, as well as a Safe Streets and For All project. And then the city is putting in for a highway safety improvement program on US 89. So those are the projects in the TIP. And again, we are looking for approval or adoption by the board today with those kind of technical amendments that were referenced in the presentation.
Just a question, curiosity, because I can't read the screen, the letters are so small. The bridge over the 40, over by Woody Mountain Road, is that on the list by any chance in the future? Because I was driving that road recently and some pedestrians had to walk across it. It's kind of scary for pedestrians to cross that road.
To my knowledge, that's not on the list.
Okay.
But those pedestrian improvements have been.
When,
It's Woody Mountain. It's the bridge of Woody Mountain.
yes, like you're going to
Road
Gore.
over. It's not
And-
not
and-
the interchange, but just the bridge.
No, just the bridge, yeah. And considering the amount of growth that's happening down Woody Mountain Road, like it's pretty amazing. Like there's houses probably a couple blocks down now, whereas before that used to be dirt road. And so as that traffic increases, we probably want to look at a way to reinforce that bridge, expand that bridge, provide a pedestrian bridge, something to that effect, because that's a accident waiting to happen.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, there is a process called the planning to programming process to introduce projects like that. I've made a note and will be sure to introduce that in the next cycle.
All right, thank you. Member Aslan.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. I would hope, Kate and David, you would remember that I've been harping on that particular stretch of road over the years as well. Definitely something I brought up with Miles in the past as well. I was hoping the John Wesley Powell crossing that they're making right now would be striped and for ped, bike, dog walking. It's not, that's not the case. It's not being done. So I feel like we're not learning from those mistakes. But the Woody Mountain Bridge over I-40 is something I've been mentioning since I started on council back in 2018. And that was brought to my attention by residents of Presidio who try to walk out there all the time. It's just a drum worth beating.
Thank you. Are there any other comments? Yes, Member McCarthy.
Yeah, I rode my bike over Woody Mountain Bridge over 140 once. I'll never do it again. It's scary. I did have a question. Is the forest pedestrian crossing across Highway 180, is that one of the ones you mentioned that's been kind of pulled, at least for now?
My understanding of the latest on that project is that it's being studied under Mountain Line's first last mile grant, and that there is receptivity to some sort of pedestrian signal at that I think it's at 60% design right now, and it's been through a couple approvals by ADOT, but they don't have a actual, they're not at the permit stage, so you never know, but it is moving forward.
Yeah, I'll just mention that city council gets approached on that way more often than any other crossings around town. The public are really kind of waiting for that. They want it. One of the reasons they do is, kids have to go across there. For adults to go across is one thing, but you're second grader walking across there by yourself, scary.
Yes, no doubt. Definitely want to be looking for those opportunities. So thank you for that. Thank you for that conversation, and look forward to seeing this as a potential project moving forward as we look for opportunities to help give those multimodal modes of transportation, provide those safely in our community. So thank you. All right. We need a motion, I believe, to adopt the tip adoption.
Yep.
May I have a motion to adopt the 2025-2029 Transportation Improvement Program?
I move that we adopt the 2025, 2025 Transportation Improvement Program.
Thank you. We have a motion by Vice Chair Sweet. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a second by Member McCarthy. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All right, thank you. Motion passes. Next item is number 5, consideration and adoption of FY24 and FY25 United Planning Work Program. Executive Director Morley.
Thank you. What is a unified planning work program? It is a required document by both FHWA, Federal Highway Administration, and ADOT that identifies the work that the MPO intends to do and activities to be carried out and associates our funding sources with the work that will occur. It has some required components. We have to outline the structure of the organization, our funding sources, and our budget, and then the elements that are in the bullet points there are all required tasks that we have to say what we're doing in each of those categories. So the UPWP is a 2-year document. So it was FY24, FY25. That's set by ADOT. But every year, amendments are needed because the budgets change. We use estimates in for FY25, and then FY25 rolls around and we need to update things. So a couple particular things that need to be updated were the board previously approved switching the funding source for the Downtown Mile project from the surface transportation block grant to the carbon reduction program, but the UPWP was never updated to reflect that. So we're making that change. 2, we need to update the budget narrative to include the Transportation Alternatives Award for the Safe Routes program. So we were awarded that funding. We've talked about it for several months, but we need to include it in the UPWP in order to spend those funds. And then finally, since we were updating the UPWP anyways, we put the most recent draft of the FY25 budget in it. So updating that piece. These are the same proposals you saw last month. And the reason that it was tabled last month is we were anticipating additional updated revenue numbers from ADOT. And ADOT has not finalized those numbers yet, so it has not changed in that regard. But I did speak to other MPOs about how they manage these constantly changing numbers without coming back to their boards every time. And they all said that they have an administrative amendment process. So what's different from last month is I did draft an administrative amendment process that would allow items under the 4 bullets on the screen to be approved and resubmitted to FHW and ADOT by staff rather than needing to come back for board adoption. So 1, we can just correct Scrivener's errors. That's the second bullet there. But the more substantive items would be that we can add work elements or grants that the board already approved. So for example, on the previous slide, we have to include the Downtown Mile, we have to include the Transportation Alternatives Program, which we've talked about many times at the board. So we would have the ability to just insert that into the UPWP because you approved us applying for and executing that grant. The second item is changing the fund source. So this relates to that downtown mile example where the money amounts are the same. We're just changing the revenue sources. And as long as we're fiscally constrained, that we would be able to do that administratively if we're not changing the budgets. And then finally, the fourth one proposed is that we could correct the grant revenue estimates. They do have to be exact in the WP because it's used to obligate our funding from the federal government. And those dollars figures are changing frequently as the federal government does drafts of budget or does half-year budgets. The numbers just change, but it has to be down to the dollar. And so that we would be able to revise those little fluctuations without coming back to the board, as long as it's an increase or only a decrease of up to $5,000. But if it was a decrease of more than $5,000, because that would be a substantial decrease in revenue to the organization, that we would come back to the board for that. So those are the proposed administrative amendments in the UPWP that are new to that process and could eliminate some of the need to come back to the board for those sorts of things in the future. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions, but we do need to we do need to consider approval of the UPWP.
All right, are there any questions or comments from board members at this time? No, in that case, do I have a motion to adopt the 2024-2025 Unified Planning Work Program?
I'll make that motion, including the amendments that we just went over.
Okay, so we have a motion by Member McCarthy. We have a second by Vice Chair Sweet.
Second.
All right, thank you. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. All right, motion passes. Thank you. Item number 6, consideration adoption of strategic grants process. Staff member Sandra Tavel.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board. As you remember from previous meetings, we've engaged in a several months long process to come up with a strategic grant seeking plan, and we're finally there. So as a refresher, we have made exponential gains in grant pursuits and grants awarded. And of our partners, everybody is embedded in the plan, and all of their projects have been scored according to certain criteria, with the exception of Mountain Line Transit. They have their own project prioritization process that we are honoring, and we're also embedding them into the plan and making sure that our members are always considering the transit aspect of their projects. So post-plan adoption, we are asking you to consider adoption today. And if this plan gets adopted, then we follow the plan and our partners will decide to apply for certain grants with their projects that are inside the plan. It is our role to ensure that the project is in our TIP, as Kate mentioned before, and that the projects are in our partners' capital improvement plan. So all those compliance-oriented items, and then also deciding roles. What is MetroPlan going to do? Who are the subject matter experts? Who's the lead applicant, et cetera, et cetera. And then we can get to applying. There are 14 projects across 7 fund sources. And as you can see on this map, so here you have these dotted red lines are the high injury crash network. So the bipartisan infrastructure law really looks at safety, equity, and sustainability. Those are the 3 overarching themes for most of the grant projects, for most of the discretionary federal grant programs, excuse me. So this red line is the high injury crash network where incidents and fatalities happen in our region. Excuse me. And then this area that I'm hovering over here are disadvantaged tracks for the equity component. So then you can see the different projects that are located along the high injury crash network or impact or adjacent to or located in disadvantaged areas. And I do want to acknowledge an earlier conversation about honoring multimodal projects. Out of the 14 projects that are planned for discretionary grants, 10 of them are multimodal. Here are Mountain Lines projects. So all of the orange dots are proposed Mountain Line projects, and as you can see, they very heavily honor disadvantaged areas as well as addressing, like they're located on high injury crash networks, all helping to reduce carbon emissions and all the good things that transit does. So in your packet, you have the full plan, and I just wanted to highlight some major projects and some major grants that are within the plan. So as I mentioned, most of these projects are multimodal in nature. So we have RAISE, right? That's one of the biggest grant programs. And we have the city's Santa Fe Milton Bikeway project. Right now, they are in the planning phases and they are going to apply for a couple of planning grants to plan this connectivity. And so this RAISE application would be for future construction. And then you have the county's engineering for the Belmont and Roundabout traffic interchange. And then you have another huge project for construction, the Complete Streets conversion for 4th Street that goes from Route 66 to Cedar Avenue. And then on the right here, you have the scoring criteria. So when we got together and scored these as a team, we used the federal discretionary grant criteria to score them for best fit. And then you can see the count. So nobody's really starting to apply for raise until FY26. Then you have Protect, the most recently won grant by Coconino County, which is really seeking to make surface transportation facilities resilient to climate-driven disasters, which here in Flagstaff, we have a post-wildfire flooding problem. So coming up for the Protect grant, we have a city BNSF collaboration for an area adjacent to the Flagstaff Mall that addresses post-wildfire flooding. And then what's interesting about the Protect grant is if a municipality has a resilience improvement plan, applications could get their match reduced potentially between 7 and 3 percentage points. So that's coming up here soon. And then you have a Mead Lane construction bundle, which is another city. It's kind of a patchwork of city projects that address post-wildfire flooding in Flagstaff proper. Then you have Safe Streets and Roads for All. As you know, our region has been very successful in winning these monies. And we have Safe Routes Planning. We have, again, the Santa Fe Milton Bikeway for construction and the Complete Streets conversion. So the strategy is to take these big, beautiful, multimodal projects and apply for multiple grants to see what we get in the different phases, right? There's planning and design, then there's construction, and that's the strategy that we're looking at today. So what happens, I'm not going to go over every single grants page. I went over the major grants and the major projects, but the full projects are in the plan. And the biggest kind of highlight, I guess, in the plan is what if people deviate from the plan, right? What happens if we get to follow in the plan and then a member comes up all of a sudden with a new project and a new grant, right? So the projects that are in the plan right now, one of the tasks to writing a really good grant is really illustrating that you have support from your local community stakeholders and your elected officials in the form of support letters. So if a project is in the plan, they will automatically get support letters generated by us. If they are not in the plan, then we will seek your counsel to see if you will consider approving a letter of support for a project that is not mentioned in the grant, in the strategic grants plan. And the reasoning behind this is because we've worked with all of our stakeholders over several months to make this plan for resource allocation. We really want to be smart about how we use our resources so we can get that grant money and leverage funds. And so we'd really like to stick to the plan. And that was the reasoning behind the deviation in the plan language. So post-adoption, the annual process, we're not going to re-rank. So I took approximately 130 regional projects and boiled them down to 14 across 7 fund sources. We are not going to do that every year, right? Being mindful about resources. So at the beginning of the calendar year, we're going to rank new projects and then analyze failed ones to see if they could be tweaked and resubmitted. We will refine our new projects with our technical advisory committee. We will revise the plan, and then in 2028, we will re-rank all the projects that scored 2, which is okay, and or failed grants for resubmission. So we'll start that process again in 2028 when the new year falls off, keeping a 3-year timeline. And so today we are asking you to consider adopting the plan. And if that happens, then we will actively begin grant seeking and engage in this iterative process. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
All right, thank you for the presentation. Are there any questions at this time? And then would someone consider putting a motion to approve and adopt the strategic grants process?
Thank you. And thank you for your work on this. If I can just comment that I am seeing the value in this, and wow, you put a lot of effort and it's going to pay off. And I just really appreciate that. So with that, I would recommend that we adopt the strategic grants plan for 2025 to 2027.
Thank you. We have a motion by Vice Chair Sweet. Do we have a second?
I will second that.
We have a second by Member McCarthy. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye.
Right?
All right, thank you. Motion approved. Thank you. All right, next up, item number 7, consider ADOT performance measures and targets. MetroPlan staff member David Wessel. Welcome back.
It's good to be back. Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board. This is kind of taking another chapter out of some of the book of some of our colleagues around the state. ADOT is federally mandated to track performance requirements, performance of the system, as are we. As an MPO, we have the option to adopt our own performance targets or to adopt ADOT's, and we have historically adopted ADOT's, but we've done that in a serial fashion. They don't produce all their performance reports at the same time, so when they came in, we've come before the board. And this is really asking the board to authorize staff to accept those targets on behalf of the board until such time as we recommend to you and you give us direction to do otherwise. There's a number of targets that are tracked: safety, including fatalities, serious injuries, speds, and bike; system performance, including reliability for trucks and passenger vehicles; and congestion in those areas that are in air quality and non-attainment; and then pavement and bridge condition. So really what this is looking at is streamlining the process for us all. And so we're looking for the board to adopt this new policy, and we will implement it going forward. Happy to answer any questions.
All right, thank you for bringing this to our attention. Are there any discussion? Member McCarthy.
Yeah, I'll just point out that when we discussed this with city staff, they were supportive of adopting the state goals.
All right. All right, no more comments. In that case, do we have a motion to adopt the ADOT performance measures and targets?
So moved.
We have a motion by Member McCarthy. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a second by Vice Chair Sweet. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All right, motion passes. Thank you. Next item, number 8, TDM update, MetroPlan staff member Kim Austin.
Thank you, Chair and members of the board. Kim Austin, TDM planner. I just wanted to give you a little update on the program so far. A quick note, our Safe Routes to School coordinator, we have a couple of applicants, so we are hoping to interview those and come back with someone that we hire very soon in the next weeks. And Bike Month is over. Whew. We had many events, and I did sit in on Flagstaff Biking Organization's board meeting. Overall, the numbers were a little bit lower than they have been in the past, so they're trying to decide how to move forward, potentially going back to a week, not a month. So I'll keep you updated on that as it unfolds. And then, of course, the Cheshire project is also complete. So the first picture obviously was the design that was voted on by the community. That was the vision to the reality. And there you go. This was a drone image from a neighbor that came out at the end of the event on the 18th. Yes. All right. Oops, that's not what I want. Oh, there we go. Okay. So just a couple to recap the event. We have 4 elected officials. We had about 185 community volunteers, 5 partners, 4 sponsors. We sent out 930 postcards to the neighborhood. We personally went door to door and spoke to about 30 neighbors within Cheshire, and we had about 15 coordination meetings with the residents and our partners. And that is a cutie that is painting on Saturday. And then, of course, that's a great picture of the mayor, Supervisor Horstman, Supervisor Vasquez, and then Janice, who is from FALA. Just a recap of Bloomberg, the typical results from an asphalt art initiative does show decrease in the rate of car crashes involving pedestrians and vehicles, an increase in driver compliance of speeds and revitalizing public spaces. And so we are going to be studying the effects. And so next steps, we're compiling a lessons learned from the project. We'll be partnering with the City of Flagstaff in conducting some traffic safety, follow-up safety type stuff. There will be a community survey going out so we can hear from the community how it was received, and then hoping to have other future projects within the community. And I'm happy to answer any questions. Oh, that's the best picture of all, sorry. MetroPlan and the City of Flagstaff actually installed the delineators in this project. So that was really fun.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. It was so much fun painting. It was pretty cool. And it was cool to see so many people out there. So I thought the drone footage was the early one from the county that we did, but this is the final version. Very impressive. Good job, team. That was fun. Awesome. Are there any other questions or comments at this time? Vice Chair Sweet.
I just want to add on that this is one of my favorite projects that I've seen in Flagstaff. What a great team effort. Thank you.
It was very fun. Thank you so much.
Great, thank you. All right, next item, number 9. Yeah, number 9, update on key performance indicators.
Thank you, Chair. I'll just kick it off. Each of the staff members is kind of tasked with tracking one of these. And so our first one is Sandra, but they'll rotate through the different KPIs.
Thank you, Kate. Mr. Chair, members of the board, the first objective is to maximize funding for transportation projects and programs. And the way we track that is number of opportunities sought versus amount of funding obtained. and developing annual legislative agenda and work plan and clean audits and reviews. I will concentrate on numbers 1 and 2 with this snapshot. So our goal is to maximize funding, and I think we have done that. So in fiscal year 2024, we have pursued almost, as a region, almost $150 million. And as a region, we have been awarded over $90 million. We have pursued 17 grants and we have been awarded 10. So the graphic on the right illustrates, the lines illustrate the regional funding pursuit and obtaining. So by region, I mean MetroPlan plus partners. For example, we our spectrum of support is vast, right? We can write a whole entire narrative like we did with the US 89 Protect grant. We had a real heavy hand in arranging and writing and submitting that grant. And then there was the city's East Butler Raise project, which they hired a consultant to write their grant, and we assisted with collecting letters of support and editing. So the lines represent the region, and then the bars represent actually what MetroPlan has actually led. For example, we led, wrote, and executed the Bloomberg project, as I mentioned before, the Protect project, right? So the lines indicate the regions, and the bar indicates MetroPlan. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions at this time on goal 1? All right, thank you. Appreciate it.
That's goal number 2. Again, David Wessel, planning manager. Goal number 2 is to deliver plans that meet partner and community needs. Our objectives are really to handle project management in a transparent way, make sure we're including disadvantaged communities, making sure we have the data that we need to conduct good plans and position partners for implementation, which was mentioned earlier. So we're tracking our stakeholder involvement in those from scoping throughout the process, from scoping the final recommendations, tracking our demographics, new data, and implementation. Our stakeholder involvement has been satisfactory. We engage them in scoping. We have a number of projects that are underway that they're involved in. Our demographics, this is the previous quarter. We just heard from Kim in terms of some of the outreach, at least in one community that was very strong. That'll be reflected in some of these numbers next quarter, as well as a survey, an online survey that was conducted as part of the West Route 66 study that'll show up next quarter. No new data sets collected this quarter. The Regional Transportation Safety Plan had added to those numbers previously. This last KPI is going to be a very lagging indicator as we put projects in motion. Going to project delivery will take time, but we hope to start seeing those move here shortly. As far as where we stand on a number of these projects, the State Streets Master Plan will be kicking off shortly. This is that very large grant that was received because it is so large and it's fairly, we'll call it sophisticated in terms of its ambition. It's going to be a very deliberate and deliberately paced scoping process. So this is going to be one of those go slow to go fast efforts, taking our time to make sure we're set up for success. The Creative Local Match effort being administered by Sandra Tavel will be picking up here again shortly now that she's wrapped up the strategic grants process. West Route 66 operational assessment. Expect to make quite a bit of progress on the analytical side of things over the summer. Recommendations will be coming towards the end of the calendar year, with adoption anticipated late or early next year. The Vulnerable Road User Safety Plan is getting ready to hit the streets for some of the consulting work that we need. So we'll start seeing that move shortly. Likewise with the Trip Diary Survey, we've been through scoping It's a pretty predictable process. This will be our fourth one that we're doing. And because we want to do good trend analysis, it's going to look a lot like the other ones. So it's kind of a rinse and repeat type effort. We do have a couple under our belt. The route transfer study and the regional transportation safety plan are complete. And we'll also be launching next round of traffic counts, which I think was also mentioned earlier with the budget and the work program. Happy to answer any questions on our planning efforts.
Do we have any questions on goal 2 and our planning efforts? No, looks good, and it's exciting that we have some that are complete.
Yeah, it's
So-
always nice.
Thank you. All right, next up, goal 3.
Afternoon, board. All right, so goal 3 is to build MetroPlan's visibility in the community. And this is really looking at public outreach and how we're interacting at public events and even what kind of events we are conducting. So overall, looking at item number 1, the public events part, that's light, obviously. Quarter 4 is really spring, summertime when we start getting into those community events that we tend to participate in. So when we report the next quarter results, expect that number to actually have a number besides 0. Um, Item number 2, we're looking at the number of people and organizations that we interact with quarterly. As you see, we have this exponential growth in quarter 3 at 88 folks that actually Kim primarily as part of the Cheshire project coordinated those project meetings and leading up to actual painting on the road. Item number 3 is looking at really our social media and our newsletter that we offer folks to sign up for online. So this is just looking at the number of new followers. As we see that those numbers are pretty well aligned. Once again, I do expect with the heavy presence on social media in regards to the Cheshire project, that number is going to increase substantially. And the number 4 is looking at more of our digital and print materials and how we're distributing them. In quarter 1, we did have a project that we sent out postcards. As previously mentioned by Kim, postcards were sent with Bloomberg. There was also notifications as part of the West Route 66 operational assessment. So those will be seen in quarter 4. And this just gets into some of the details specifically around social media. You know, when you look at the quarterly folks that follow or join our content, you know, we're in that about 40 range, but cumulatively we have 111 folks that follow us on Facebook and 228 that follow us on Instagram. Overall, Facebook does respond better. We get a lot more likes and shares and comments. I think it's just that type of platform and folks are used to using it like that versus Instagram, which is obviously more picture based. So we're still getting, you know, a lot of visual, you know, content out there. And I think people are getting to hopefully know what MetroPlan is, but we still have work to do, of course. And then a lot of that traffic that comes to our social media accounts gets directed to our website. So we're able to see if people are actually moving to the website for specific project information, for taking surveys, et cetera. And I believe that's it. Are there any questions?
Do we have any questions on goal 3 at this time?
All right, thank you all.
All right, thank you. Appreciate it. Next up, goal 4.
I'm back. Okay, goal 4, implementing programs that encourage mode shift. Specifically, we would like to see an increase in trips made, walking, biking, micromobility, and transit. That will be coming soon, in addition to hopefully a reduction in school traffic. And then, of course, the number of programs and pilot demonstrations conducted. So on the left side of the screen, the programs, I'm going to echo Dave and Mandia. That number will change in quarter 4 due to the Cheshire project and the outreach that occurred. And then, of course, once we get a Safe Routes to School coordinator on board, and hopefully we can start tackling the reduction in K through 12 school traffic. On the right side of the screen, it's a slow change, and this data is seen from census data and trip diaries. The last time I checked the website, census data for 2023 was not up there, so I have not changed that, but hopefully soon it will change and I will reflect those numbers on the screen. Any questions?
Are there any questions on item 4? Or goal 4, excuse me. All right, thank you, appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
All right, then it looks like we're up to next item, discussion on ADOT lighting standards. Metro Plan staff, David Wessel.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board. I'm really excited about this project. One of the benefits of sticking around for such a long time is, opportunities present themselves again, and maybe you get a chance to see them come to light. So we have a proud tradition here of being a dark skies community. We've been a leader nationally and internationally, and in part that's due to the work of the people behind me, and I've been privileged to work with them on occasion. Not sure when it was, but shortly after I arrived, we hosted the ADOT State Transportation Board up at Lowell Observatory to talk about dark skies lighting, or the lighting at the I-40, I-17 system interchange, and the desire for dark skies lighting. And I believe we recall it was 2014, we helped host International Dark Skies Conference. I think we had somebody from Canada, which put us across the line there. And that started a process where the city adopted some new technical standards because the low pressure sodium lights that we'd been using for so long came to pass. And now, as I mentioned in the presentation on the tip, ADOT is looking to upgrade lights, and they have been having conversations with some of the people in the room about dark skies lighting. And the question before you today is, should we look at this, let this pass as perhaps a one-off and celebrate that, or should we as MetroPlan, on behalf of our members, the city and the county, request a policy change at ADOT for dark skies lighting? There's discussions that are going to have to take place as we shape that policy request, if so directed by the board. But we are pleased that we've come to this point and looking forward to, with your direction, to move forward. We have some distinguished guests here today that may wish to address this. I will hit a few points, but they can speak to them much more intelligently and eloquently than I can. We're really looking at employing the standards the city has developed for lighting, as far as the amount of light, and and that really pertains to spectrum, the wavelengths of light, as far as the frequency of lights and the amount of light that's put out. Really don't intend to weigh in on that in terms of policy recommendation for ADOT, and that will be up to their lighting and safety experts to determine. So with that, I'll answer any questions that I'm able to, but there may be others that wish to speak.
All right, before we move on to public comment from folks who would like to present, are there any comments from board members? Yes, Member McCarthy.
So you're suggesting that we focus on the wavelength of the light, the color of the light, and not so much on the intensity of the light. Is that correct?
Correct.
All right. Are there any other questions or comments by board members? Member Oslin.
Hey, thank you so much. I don't know if there's been a lot of conversation involving me in this setting, but I know there's been a lot of behind the scenes emails going back and forth on this topic. I really appreciate this being agendized. I'm so glad to see our partners here. I just checked the calendar because I had an inkling It was a year ago today that we were all in Albuquerque together for the American Astronomy Association's annual conference down there. We had an all-day panel that we worked on together. I really appreciated being invited to be a part of all that. Great conversations. Chris, I want to thank you for your continued advocacy on this front over the years. And recently, you've really kept the feet to the fire, so to speak, on this one. And I'm always going to be fully supportive of moving the most stringent standards we can forward. And I just appreciate the relationship building that's going on with ADOT. Obviously, they have a big role to play in our light dome here in Flagstaff, and it's one of those boxes we need to check. And it's also something, it's not a one and done. So in terms of my reaction to that question, this should definitely be an ongoing, evolving relationship. Players change, people come and go, institutional memory ebbs and flows, and we've learned over the years in the dark sky community that you can't just walk away from this subject, or else you'll lose ground on it very quickly. And once you lose ground, you don't get it back. I really hope you guys aren't just sitting there watching a technical meeting unfold for an hour. Would love to hear from you, and I hope you've filled out your comment card or are prepared to speak. It's going to be interesting.
Thank you. Are there any other comments by board members? Okay, in that case, if we have some guests that would like to speak, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chairman Vasquez and members of the board and staff. My name is Chris Loganville. I'm here speaking on behalf of the Flagstaff Dark Skies Coalition. I used to be a Naval Observatory employee, but for the last 10 years or so, I'm a private retired citizen. This is a long story. It began back when Flagstaff and Coconino County, actually Coconino County first, and Flagstaff a few months later, took a momentous step forward in 1989 to adopt spectrum standards, strict spectrum standards for lighting in our communities and our roadways in the city. This was in the city and the county, and very shortly after that, other players got involved. Northern Arizona University, through the Office of the President, became aware of the standards and pledged the university's support of those standards, even though they were not bound by the local standards. And one of the benefits of working on this for so many years now is that eventually almost everybody around me has been involved in this at some point or other. Nearly all of the people I'm looking at on the board have been involved with this at some level. The staff that I'm looking at, I've worked with over many of these, 89 to present. That's 35 years, isn't it? Something like that. So yeah, it's a long story. However, shortly after NAU and the county and the city had adopted the standards, we began discussions with the Department of Transportation about the lighting that Dave Wessel referred to. Actually, I believe it started with the reconstruction of the I-40, I-70 interchange. And we brought up the topic of the spectrum standards. We have never, as David indicated, have asked the lighting engineers or designers at the Department of Transportation to change the lighting levels or other specifications of the way they use lighting, but we have asked them to consider our spectrum standards. So I'm pleased to say that today in 2024, I think we've kind of got a critical mass of people involved here with experience that I'm really optimistic that we can begin to make some progress here. The DOT has never been opposed in any obvious way to what we have asked them to do. But on the other hand, after 35 years, I think I can say that we have something like less than a half a dozen lights up installed under control of the DOT, Arizona Department of Transportation, that kind of meet the spectrum standards we're after. The bad news is it's only a dozen or less. The good news is it's way more than zero. And it's really become critical in the last 10 years or so, and much more importance to make progress on. as we've been shifting to the LED lighting technologies, because this is the time when now we have been moving away from lights that the Department of Transportation used, which were more or less close to the standards that were appropriate for our area. And now they're diverging more strongly, at least in the industry or the practices countrywide, worldwide even, as we shift to LED lighting. So it's become a more critical issue. So I'm very pleased to have the support of Kate Morley, your executive director, who is also has some history with lighting standards in this community back when she was a planner at Coconino County. And so we're really optimistic that with your support, we can finally get some rubber on the road regarding lighting at the that's under control of the Arizona Department of Transportation. So thank you very much for your time and your attention to this matter. Any questions, I'm glad to answer, and there's others who might like to speak as well.
Yeah, it looks like we do have some members that want to speak. I just wanted to say thank you for your advocacy. It's so cool the fact that Flagstaff in particular, but Coconino County is so far ahead in these lighting standards and requesting our dark skies. And this is just another piece to that puzzle. So good job, way to keep it up, and we'll keep working on it. Member Oslin.
Yeah, just a couple more points. I don't know if I have a question for you, Chris, but I just wanted to hit a couple other notes here. We are way ahead and out in front on this. It's disappointing to hear that after all those years, there's only a dozen or so lights or, items that are under the control of ADOT that meet those standards. I think we are fighting, a kind of bureaucracy here that's just something we need to be aware of, and we need to keep chugging along at it hard. There's a number of reasons why this is important. One that comes to mind is just, leading by example. And I know there are other communities around Arizona. There are other communities in the larger region that are dipping their toe in the water and flirting with ideas of bringing their dark skies back, including communities in and around Phoenix, like Fountain Hills and Paradise Valley. If these conversations can help to build momentum around that and encourage the ADOT and other places to realize that we're not just quirky up here and a squeaky wheel that needs grease, but just something that should become standardized. Another thing that's more recent, the Lowell Discovery Center is opening in November. That has a rooftop, open, real planetarium. We need to be mindful of how our light dome is changing just with respect to the $50 million investment that Lowell Observatory has made and that this community has made to showcasing and championing that world-class amenity that we're going to have up on the hill. We could see the effectiveness of that experience dwindle over time if we're not careful, especially near Lowell and the freeways. I-17, I-40 interchange is fairly near Lowell and in a good line of sight with it too. And also, not to hit on this too heavily, I don't think we're going to talk about it much, but the folks who are here with us today are from the U.S. Naval Observatory. There's a critical national security interest at play here. You don't have to be a rocket scientist to sort of guess at some of the things that are going on that are so important to our national security. A couple nights ago, I was having a driveway movie, and it happened to be great timing. It was Friday night. It was well after dark. There was no moon. It was a spectacular evening, and we saw a rocket launch. I'm not sure from where, California desert somewhere. I'm sure it was one of a SpaceX thing. It was incredible. We watched it go all the way across the sky before it finally vanished. Just really neat to see. But the point there is that there's a lot of activity. A lot of people are putting things up in orbit. There's a critical U.S. security need to keep tabs on that, and you don't do that from the moon. You you have to do it from the ground, and this is one of the only places in the country where we have the capacity to really hold on to those things. So again, just more important than the feel good, the preservation aspect, the economic aspect. There's a lot of considerations at play here.
Thank you. Member McCarthy.
Thank you, Chair. We've had a lot of discussion about land-based lighting. Has anyone ever looked at automobiles, headlights? Is that a problem? Or can it become a problem?
It's funny that you say that because Dave and I looked at each other because I did a study about 15 years ago, a little more, where we tried to estimate all the lighting that was produced by Flagstaff. How much was it? How much of it was produced in various categories? How much came from signs? How much came from roadways, ball fields, houses, et cetera? And Dave, and I worked with Dave to try to come up with, as far as I'm aware of, the first estimate of how much is produced by headlights on cars. And it was an interesting exercise, and I think it was realistic. Dave gave me the kinds of measurements that traffic people use, which is like numbers of trips or something like that per hour or per day. And I had to try to translate that into numbers of headlights. But it was a fun process. So yes, the car lighting, it turns out, is significant. Uh, One of the things that people who monitor the brightness of the sky have noticed is that it gets darker during the night. And it looks like, at least in Flagstaff, that may be completely accounted for by headlights. In the evening, there's a lot, and as you go towards morning, there's less and less. But anyway, yes, it's a significant contributor, about 30% in the early evening. And by the way, another number useful for you to think about is that an estimate of the amount of light which is controlled by ADOT on their roadways compared to Flagstaff overall, it's about 10% of the lighting, mostly on Interstate 40, but also at intersections around town.
So if I know that it's to get anything changed, especially at the federal level, would be a big task. But would there be any possibility from a technical viewpoint of changing the color of headlights?
Well, I
And
did kind of skirt over the question that you were asking, and that is how much of an impact are they and can we change them? That's a mountain that I have not tried to climb. You know, that is an awful lot of people, particularly people of our age who are very sensitive to the glare of oncoming headlights increasingly as we get older. And I know that a lot of these new lights produce a lot of glare. There's no question about it, sometimes overwhelming amounts of glare. And yet, nonetheless, it doesn't seem that the appropriate or whatever the appropriate federal regulatory bodies who address how bright headlights can be have tackled this problem. So it's not something that dark sky folks or myself have tried to find a way to make progress on. I wish I could.
right, thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Ms. Morley.
Chair, if I may on that, I do believe there's discussion at the federal level about regulating some of the LED headlights that are so bright now. As if you think about that safe systems approach, we keep talking about, one of them is safer vehicles. And I do believe that that's one of the items they're looking at purely from a safety standpoint. So there could be opportunity to make sure these other reasons are getting inserted into those conversations.
Great, thank you. Appreciate the presentation. Definitely like knowing the background knowledge and just how key and important dark skies are to our community. Are there any other comments from our guests? Please.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. My name is Fred Verba. I'm a longtime astronomer at the Naval Observatory. Pardon me. I thank you for your kind comments and understanding about, the mission of our observatory in terms of national security. Obviously, I'm here representing the observatory, but also to a large extent astronomy here in Flagstaff. I don't have a whole lot more to add to the comments that have already been made, other than maybe saying something that's fairly obvious. And that is, well, you're all aware and the community is largely aware, and I think many people in the state and throughout the country and the world who are interested in these kind of things are aware of the, sort of platinum code regulations we have in the city and the county for general lighting. But actually what proceeded somewhat the adoption of the city and county lighting codes was work on street lighting engineering standards, which was really quite a long effort, led primarily by the city of Flagstaff. And part of the reason that was a long effort was we were in the midst of this transition, obviously, from sodium lighting to LED lighting. And the technology of that was really a moving target for quite a while. Not only did the efficiency of the lighting increase for narrowband or restricted wavelength lighting, but just the general availability of different kinds of lightings that could work with different kinds of roadway situations. So it was a work in progress for several years, but the street lighting standards were eventually adopted by the city of Flagstaff, and the city of Flagstaff, for the general lighting standards, the code was kind of waiting on those street light standards to be finalized and put in place, because the city obviously didn't want to be in a situation where they were asking the general public, perhaps in a parking lot, to do something, more restrictive or different than what the city was requiring on its own roadway lighting. So the fact of the matter is that we not only have a platinum level of lighting code standards in Flagstaff, but our street lighting engineering standards are right at that level also. And that was a kind of a separate project. So we have astronomy community and Chris, we've been in discussion with ADOT now for the last couple of years, and trying to see if we can come up with something that makes everybody happy. Several of us were involved, what, a year and a half, 2 years ago, in a demonstration of what the city of Flagstaff did in some of the intersections with ADOT representatives, and I think they were fairly impressed by what one could do with restricted wavelength LEDs. Yeah, we have a meeting with ADOT Telecom in 2 Mondays from now, where I believe we're going to be discussing some more details about the specific engineering standards that they might be looking forward to. So we're really excited that MetroPlan is behind us, and we certainly are asking MetroPlan to to um, request of ADOT what they can do to improve the lighting that they currently have. Um, Other than that, I'll take any questions you might have. I think there are also at least one other person that might be online from the astronomical community in southern Arizona who might want to say a few words after me, but I'm certainly open to any questions you might have.
Are there any questions or comments from board members at this time? Okay, thank you very much for your comments. And if there's someone else in the virtual world who'd like to make comments at this time, this would be the moment.
Sure. Can you hear me?
Yes, please.
Hello?
Floor is
Can you
yours.
hear me? Okay. Sorry. Yes. Thank you so much. Well, my name is Amy Oliver. I am a part of the Arizona Astronomy Consortium. I am the chair of
You are
the outdoor
muted.
lighting. Oh, I am not muted. Uh-oh.
Oh. Hello? Did she write anything in the chat maybe?
I can just say that on behalf, I know who it is that's trying to speak, and I'll give her a chance still. That's Amy Oliver. She's a representative from Fred Lawrence Whipple Observatory and Smithsonian Observatory in southern Arizona. I don't know if she's able to make a comment or not. Just thought I'd say that.
Well, thank you for joining us. Unfortunately, we're not hearing you this time. We'll give it one more minute, see if they can get the technical difficulties out of the way. Otherwise, just like to say, really appreciate you coming on board and listening and offering to make comments. And with that, while we're waiting, Member Aslan.
Just a way to stall perhaps, like, Chris, maybe you can come back up here. I know we talked about spectrum and we talked about intensity. I know you're exploring some other strategies as well, different types of shielding and also timing of lighting. Maybe you can explore that with us just very briefly.
Well, the city traffic engineering department has always been very supportive of the dark sky standards since the late '80s when this whole process of addressing the spectrum started. Uh, Fred Verba just recently alluded to what we call the SLEDS process, the street lighting for enhancing dark skies, which started in 2014 or 2015 to try to address what kind of lighting we would use in the LED era. After that was concluded in about 2020, I think about 2020 was when those standards were finally finalized and the city council adopted them as the new engineering standards. I've continued some conversations also with you and also with Jeff Bauman, the traffic engineer, about considering other ways of reducing impacts of lighting, in particular in residential areas where there's never been any demonstrated safety benefits from lighting on residential roadways. And we still, up until recently, required them to be installed on residential roadways, although there were exceptions. That standard, the requirement for residential lighting, was removed when the SLED standards were updated in about 2020. So I asked Jeff Bauman to consider whether we might talk about putting controls on those lights that maybe turn them off part of the night. There are, there's these little knobs that you see on the top of most streetlight fixtures, which are usually just dusk to dawn sensors that turn it off, turn the light on when it gets dark and turn it off in the morning. But there's no, even if there, especially in residential areas, there's not much benefit to it, at least safety wise, any time of night. But certainly maybe between 11 or midnight in the morning, maybe we could put sensors up there that would turn it off for that part of the night. And that's under discussion. And Jeff Bauman's been looking at it.
Chair Vasquez,
Yes.
Amy commented, she said, yes, they are very supportive of this effort. And they watch with great interest at the efforts of MetroPlan to make this work for Flagstaff.
Thank you for those comments. We really appreciate it and I look forward to possibly having this conversation again down the road. Thank you. Are there any other comments or questions at this time? From board members or from staff or guests? Member McCarthy.
I'm just thinking ahead, what's the next step? Are we going to ask staff to draft a resolution that we could maybe approve at the next meeting? Or has that already happened?
I believe what we're looking to do with your direction today, somebody say so directed, there's a relatively straightforward form to submit to ADOT requesting policy review and policy revision. I believe we want to have a little more discussion with the dark skies community as to how broadly that applies. I know, I believe it's Chairman Vasquez has talked about having it apply to all of Coconino County because we have dark skies ordinance that are expanded. Our discussion with Brendan Foley at management committee was, why don't we apply this statewide? And I think there's a question of whether it would be to the entire state or to dark skies communities within the state. So we want to figure out how to better fashion that with a little bit of little more discussion, but then we'll basically submit the form and go through the process where we'll be making presentations. And then during that process, it might be appropriate to submit resolutions from not just this board, but others as well in support of the policies, as well as maybe some of the technical information that our guests referred to today.
All right, thank you. Appreciate it. Does it require any action on our part at this time?
Mr. Chair, I think you would be authorized to say you have our direction to pursue this policy change.
All right, please do so.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next item, item 11, MetroPlan happenings. Ms. Kate Morley.
Thank you. This is our last item, and it's just a quick update of what's been going on. The Safe Streets for All grants that were just awarded are obvious highlights in case you missed that in the 3-bullet briefing and amongst all the other funds coming into the member agencies. MetroPlan was awarded $2.1 million. It is a partnership with the city county and Mountain Line, each of the partners putting up some match for the project. We're very excited. We anticipate that to take us several years to deliver. And as Dave mentioned, kind of go slow to go fast. We did put out a press release. We haven't seen that picked up yet, but hopefully in the next couple days it will. At the same time, the county also got a SS4A grant for their local road safety plan. So big congrats to the county. So that'll look at the rest of the county in it outside of the Metro Plan region. Please mark your calendars and RSVP if you haven't already. Karen's definitely keeping track of your attendance at the state board dinner. They come to town every 1 to 2 years. We're excited to host them at the CDL course so we can highlight transit. We also will have some telescopes from Lowell so that we can continue the conversation about the importance of streetlights at the event. It is meant to be more casual. We'll send out for those attending. We'll send some potential talking points while we're all mingling, and we'll do about 20 minutes or so of more a formal presentation and recognize former member Thompson at that event as well. Also, if you choose to delay your beer or wine, you can drive a Mountain Line bus at the event if you need a little extra incentive to come.
I don't know. They said last time at the Mountain Lion unveiling of that new bus place that we are going to get to drive buses that time, and they didn't let us. So I don't believe you, and I'll see it when I believe. I'll believe it when I see it.
You have to come to find out.
Is there going to be a breathalyzer?
Yeah. It is on your honor, but please do respect their vehicles. They are expensive. I will say the actual state transportation board meeting is in this room at 9 a.m. on the 21st. And we'll also reach out to some of you who are in town to see if we can submit some talking points at that as well, because that's another opportunity to reiterate things like we want the crossing at Forest and 180. We want an update to your lighting codes. So we're working on what all those messages are that we may want to share. And then staff attended some conferences. Sandra and Dave went to the Association of Metropolitan Planning Organizations in Albuquerque. Sorry, the picture did not make it. But they brought back a lot of lessons learned, 101 MPO stuff, just technical nuts and bolts. And then a number of people, including our Vice Chair Sweet, went to the National Association of City Transportation Officials, luckily in Miami, along with several TAC members and myself to learn about the latest and greatest in city transportation. It was really great. We had a city engineer with us as well, which was exciting. And we saw it was very hands-on. We were out on bike rides, touring infrastructure and seeing new things that are happening in Miami. So a great time had by all. And with that, that is my happenings report.
All right, thank you. Wish I could have gone on that Miami trip. I'm waiting for the next one. I actually stayed behind for a county trip, and then with our succession planning stuff, I had ended up having to stay in town for that. So at the end of the day, I didn't go anywhere, so I'm a little disappointed. But I look forward to the next transportation conference. All right, are there any other items from the TAC that we just
It
went
could
over?
be board, apologies, the recycled slide.
Okay. So I guess all that's really left to mention, any items from the board? Is there anything that board members would like to share with the group? Member McCarthy.
I was just trying to decide which would be a bigger thrill, riding or driving a city bus, or I've got to sit inside of a M1A1 tank once. That was pretty exciting. I don't know. Hard telling which is best.
All right. Any other comments from board members?
Just noting that June 20th is the night before full moon, so I'm not anticipating too much excitement from the dark sky experience that evening. But that's really cool that we have telescopes out there and that, you know, we're representing and just pushing that enthusiasm forward. Hopefully it's contagious. Thank you. It's rare that a word like that skips my brain. Anyway, I think.
I believe Lowell is bringing solar scopes. It is also the solstice, I think.
And then from the county side, there's two big happenings that have happened that since the last meeting. The first one is our succession planning has been announced and voted upon. So effective July 1, Andy Burlstein will become our new county manager. Steve Peru will become a consultant for the next year and a half to help with the transition. So that was not public knowledge the last meeting, so wanted to share that with folks. That was a big deal for the county and looks forward for our leadership moving forward. The second item is not as a big a deal, but it is for me because it's a relief for myself. I handed over the chairmanship on Tuesday, and our new chair is our member, Judy Begay. She's now chair of the board with Patrice Horseman as our vice chair. And so those are the two big happenings in the county that I just wanted to share with everyone. Thank you. All right, is there anything else for the good of the order? All right, in that case, thank you everyone for being here today. Our next scheduled executive board meeting is on September 5th. I look forward to seeing everybody there, and this meeting's adjourned. Thank you.